We were doing these stories about women's concerns about sexuality, and frankly, nobody understood much. There were a few people who understood. A few of our comic people understood immediately, like Robert Crumb and S. Clay Wilson, who were some of the most despicable on paper, were also the most understanding of what we were trying to do. And this was a big adventure. We were doing something that hadn't been done before, but around here, it wasn't very well respected. We gave away, comic books didn't cost much to print back then, and we gave away lots of them, and we got either no reaction back or, yes, I read it, end of story. And people weren't prepared for the kind of radical thinking that we were doing about women at that time. A lot of men were very unhappy with what we were doing. Men at that time were still in the Playboy mode, where women were, I think they used to call it objects, sex objects. Women were sex objects, and I can tell you that living through it wasn't any fun. Getting groped at work was just standard operating procedure, and that it doesn't happen anymore. And I like to think we had something to do with changing the culture, even though it might have been, you can find a lot of fault about the open sexuality in the culture now, but I don't think it's so very bad. I think there's been a lot of good release also. We thought we were doing feminist humor, but the feminists thought we were horrible for being politically incorrect. And at that time, and I'm learning more about this as I go to these places and talk, but at that time, women who were feminists had to pretty much stick to a feminist line of theory. And you could talk about finances and job discrimination and how men treated you, but you couldn't talk about sex. You didn't talk about sex. Nobody talked openly about sex back then. Right. Our work was getting reactions from people that we never intended in a million years. And we thought that Ms. Magazine would love us and that we could print in the women's publications, because we thought what we were saying was unique to women and interesting, and not all of it, but the stuff about menstruation and pregnancy and birth control use and things like that, if they thought about it, they got it. But just an awful lot of people didn't like what we were doing. Yeah. We printed the first Sits and Clits, and we were pretty proud of it because it was being nicely accepted in San Francisco with the underground comic people. Then we started sending it out to people to be reviewed, because Time and Newsweek had interviewed us at a small convention, or not actually the first underground convention, and they couldn't write about us. They could write about undergrounds in general, but they couldn't write about us because they couldn't print the title of the book in there. And Los Angeles Times, I think, has just started doing it, but the New York Times is still not able to print the title of Tits and Clits. So we were sending the comic out to these sex publications like Los Angeles Free Press and the Berkeley Free Press and different places around, whatever we'd hear about, and the women's publications too. And we heard very little back from the women's publications, but the LA Free Press had a reviewer who wrote back that our comic book was disgusting. I should really pull that letter out of the file so I have it exactly. But basically he was saying the comic book is disgusting, and a woman's vagina is something to put something into and not to have anything come out of. And when we got that letter, we knew we had hit the nail on the head as far as what we were trying to say. I don't have to explain why. So So that gave us courage, and we started doing a new Tits and Clits, but we decided to change the title to Pandora's Box because it's the same content, but we changed the name so we could get reviews. And then we published it, and we still couldn't get reviews because nobody was interested in a comic called Pandora's Box. Same type of content. I can't tell. It looks like quite a bit, but I don't really know. And we did what we thought would be funny and feminist and acceptable to women. We were really writing for women more than men.